Hi guys, I've said before, what is the point of government if it doesn't look after the health, the education and the welfare of its citizens? So it now turns out a building material called RAAC, which was used in the post-war period in the construction of many public buildings, including schools, was not meant to last as long as it's currently being in use. This resulted in the collapse of a roof of a school back in 2018. The Tories have now claimed that they're dealing with the problem. Labour Shadow Justice Secretary appeared on Sky News to basically call the government liars, and he's right.
The government say they're the only country that's actually proactively seeking information about buildings that have used RAAC, and they say that it's only last-minute information that's come to light that shows that some of these schools are vulnerable and they've acted straight away.
I think they're being a little less than frank, to put it politely, in what they're saying this morning, because we know, and so do government ministers, that 5 years ago in 2018 there was a school in Gravesend in North Kent that collapsed because it had this kind of concrete in. Now, if you can't think of a starker warning about the danger and risks this concrete poses than a school that collapsed. Thank God it happened at a weekend and not when children were in it. Now, since then, the government's had a report from the National Audit Office. They had a report from the Department for Education itself just last December telling them the situation was critical at that point. Now, he either read that and is being disingenuous, or he didn't do his job and look at that report. But also in the last 2 years, my colleague, Bridget Phillipson, who's the Shadow Secretary of State for Education, has raised this issue in questions and debates in Parliament over 150 times. So if they're telling you they didn't know this was a problem, they're not being truthful. And they should have taken action at the beginning of the summer holidays so that measures were in place now to ensure those kids get an education, whether it's remote or in alternative buildings, not days before the start of term. That is neglect and it is incompetent.
Well, they say they've already taken some action in around 50 schools. There's this work that's been going on, and the latest information has only come to light in the last few days in some cases, they say. They also have sent out questionnaires and surveys to schools, and they're waiting for the results of those to come back. Some of them have been slow to come back. They say they're doing all they can.
They've had 5 years. How have they not been pursuing this issue when they knew that a school collapsed 5 years ago? Now,
they're lying. Yeah, this is all new information. It's not all new information. 5 years ago. Now, what does this remind you of? It reminds me of exercise sickness before the pandemic, where the government were given a report saying you need to upgrade PPE, you need to replace certain PPE. It's not fit for purpose. It needs to be replaced. When it came to the baby Stockholm, the government were told it's a death trap. You shouldn't be using it. But they put asylum seekers on it anyway. So when they're told by experts, you should be doing X or you should not be doing Y, they do the opposite. They ignore it. Why? Why do they do this? They had 5 years. Now they're saying, now the Tory government are saying, well, what we're doing is we're sending out questionnaires to schools to find out if they have this material. Like, you've had 5 years since that building collapse, that roof collapse. And as they pointed out here, thankfully it happened at the weekend, so there was nobody in the building. But can you imagine if it was on a Monday morning? 5 years ago, the government could have easily said, okay, let's do an inquiry into this, get an investigation going, see how many buildings, and this is not just schools, these are other buildings as well. Make a list of the buildings that contain this material and start replacing it. But instead, they ignore it. Well, we'll deal with it sometime later in the future, perhaps. But as we know, the longer you leave a problem, the more expensive it becomes to fix. Were they just hoping that, well, there'll be a new government soon and they'll deal with the problem? Is this always about offloading responsibility onto somebody else? This is a massive problem facing infrastructure in the country. Let's leave it till the Labour Party. It'll probably collapse when the Labour Party are in power, and then we can blame them for not fixing it. Is that what their plan is? You know, to hell with the consequences. What is the point of the Conservative government? Is it just about funneling money into the pockets of their friends and donors? Like, when it comes to trivial issues that are not important for the country, they'll throw money at it. When it comes to stopping the boats, they'll say, this is our priority. We're going to stop the boats. It doesn't matter how much money we spend. And unfortunately, the journalists never ask them, how much is this going to cost? How are you going to pay for it? no, we're going to spend huge amounts of money stopping boats. It doesn't work. But when it comes to infrastructure for schools, for hospitals, for public buildings, well, we need to look into it and understand how much it's going to cost and whether it's feasible or not. But when it comes to stopping boats or some trivial thing, they'll dump huge amounts of cash. Dido Harding, £37 billion. How much of that has been clawed back? Why hasn't she been dragged in front of a tribunal or some sort of inquiry and told and asked where is that money gone? Are you making efforts to return that money to the taxpayer? No, nothing. Just lying, lies after lies after lies, and all about let's spend money on things that are not important and not on things that are important. Because the important things, well, we'll leave it for somebody else to fix. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.